And welcome, everyone. This is something we haven't done in the past before because there hasn't been any basketball for about 11 months. We decided let's do a season preview. So, this is your broadcast team for the year. Mac, you're new to this. So, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
What's up, everyone? I'm Mac Ross. If you guys followed the basketball season last year, then you'll know I played last year and got to be a part of that team, which is great. Went through some health stuff that's keeping me out from being able to play, but I'm happy to be able to be a part of the team, be a part of ND in any way I can. So wanted to join the broadcasting team with Danny and just try to have a fun season.
And if you watched any of the games last year, you know me, I'm Danny Berg. I paired up with Matt McMaster a lot last year and failed miserably because I didn't know basketball that well. Over the last year, I've improved a little bit. So hopefully this year it's a little more enjoyable for those of you that will be watching. And we'll be taking over for Matt and Stephen Claybaker, who were just the rock stars of last year's broadcast team. And occasionally I would go in and just mess everything up. So hopefully this year will hold up to their standards. So let's get right into it. So far, I believe 12 confirmed games, if that's correct. I believe there's 12 confirmed games. 8 home games, 4 road games, 4 home games in the next 10 days, so we'll be busy. Mac, I'll go to you first. All the ESCC teams plus Prospect, Streamwood, and Maine South, how do you view this season just as of right now with what is on the schedule? Let's just go with your predictions right off the bat. What are you anticipating?
I think if all things go well, it should be a 12-0 season, and that's not even biased. It's just if you look at it, Notre Dame is more talented on paper than every team almost in the state. So if they play the way that we know they can play, being coached by Coach Clancy, so disciplined on offense and defense, I think they should go 12-0. I have their hardest game right now as against St. Pat's, which just shapes up nicely because that's our rivals. But yeah, I think besides St. Pat's and then Bennett's always a great team. Maine South is another close rival, so it should be a high energy game. I think those are going to be 3 tough games that test us. But I think if all things go well, we should have a 12-0 season right now.
I would agree. I would also throw in Marian Catholic as well, the co-champions of last year. That should be interesting too. I haven't looked up on their roster recently, but I have a feeling that when they do play, and I believe that game is the final game of the season, we might see ourselves in potentially an ESCC championship game on that day. But yeah, with what you said on those other 3 games, those will be big too. A lot of people are really high on St. Pat's. A couple guys over at the Sun-Times, they think that they're a top 10 team. I would probably agree, considering what we saw from them last year, neck and neck throughout the game from last season. Some really good sophomores that will be jumping up to varsity this year. So it should be a competitive game when they do play, and I believe that game is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the 9th, I think, or the 16th.
I think the 16th.
Yeah.
We will not have that game, unfortunately. Yeah, it's okay. Besides that, I'm just going to make a comparison here. This is something that we're not specifically us, but the team as a whole, depending on how many more games get added to the schedule, because I wouldn't put it past the athletic department to include some more games in here. But there are teams around the area and the state that are playing 20 plus games in a span of 6 weeks, such as Maine South, which, if I remember correctly, they're playing 23 games with their season starting on Friday. just your thought on this condensed schedule that not just ND is going to be going on, but just teams as a whole.
Well, I think it's obviously you understand why they schedule that many games. You go without basketball, which is all of these kids' passions, the coaches too. So you want to be able to play as much as possible. And if you start hot, then that's great because you get to keep rolling. And then, there's not really too much time to go through a rough stretch if you start hot because the season's done in a couple weeks anyway. But that's why if you come out kind of the opposite, you come out a little slow, you don't have a lot of time to figure it out. And that's why I think this year more than ever, there's really going to have to be a focus between coach and players on how do we not waste time here? How do we not take the first couple games as like, I don't know, it's like usually you play the first couple games to just test the waters, see what works, what doesn't. Now you don't have that luxury. So they're going to have to come out the first game, ND on Thursday, tomorrow, and then all these other schools coming up. They're going to have to come out hot and try to keep swinging the entire way through.
I would agree with you there. Just looking at it last year, like the start of the season you started right out of tournament play and you're going up against some really competitive teams. Even teams that the year before hadn't been competitive, those first couple of games, I don't play basketball, but just from watching it, you get that adrenaline rush. This is my first couple of games. I really want to start off well. They don't really have that luxury this year. You have to start off well if you want to be successful. And it encourages the players that they have to be good right out of the gate. And it also is going to be interesting to see, will teams come out slow because they haven't had the ramp up period that you usually see. Some places just got clear to play just last week, and now they're starting up with games a week later. That's not something you would typically see in a normal season, not to mention that you have been in a layoff period since mid-November.
Right. And I think that's where ND benefits pretty well, actually. I know they're 5 starters and then their first few off the bench all played last year. So that's where you don't have the time where I know it was an issue with college coaches saying the freshmen coming in had no time to bond, to build that chemistry. That's where I think ND really has some potential to be even better than last year because it's a lot of the same group. Obviously, they lost Jason, Jimmy, Brian Pritt as seniors, but they still have obviously the big 3, Troy, Louis, Anthony, and then you have Sonny Williams, Frank Lynch returning, Jake DeFranz off the bench. So that's a great, solid group of guys that have already played together and can use that chemistry to excel them to the next level.
I would totally agree with you. I would also throw in the transfer, Jimmy Dohoney that came in from Guerin. Right. He's going to be a great addition to that group. I'm really interested to see how he gets used in the season, especially out of the gate. He just committed to a college in Aurora, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, college in Aurora. So you're absolutely right that you have this group returning that has that bond already, that went on this incredible run last season, and they have this momentum going forward. What I'm most interested to see is now you have all this star-studded talent. You have the big 3. You have Dohoney. You have Frank Lynch. You have the up-and-coming Sonny Williams. You have Jake DeFranza, who has really strengthened himself over this past year. I really am interested to see how they're all going to get balanced with their minutes.
Yeah, and, that's been an issue for all levels of basketball. Always someone wants to take the shot more than the other person. They'd rather shoot than pass. And I can so confidently say that that's not an issue, and it wasn't an issue last year, and I don't expect it to be an issue this year. Something we stress in the program is the extra pass. So, yeah, I'm open. I can take this shot, but I have a teammate open too. Let me build his confidence. Let me show my trust in him by giving him that extra pass. And I know that's going to remain a big theme in Coach Clancy's game plans. And it helps this team stay humble, but also confident in each other, in their teammates and their teammates' ability to play.
something else that I would kind of go with there is you have all these people together. And again, I am not the basketball expert that you are, not by a long shot. But something that I really noticed last year just from watching them is you could really tell the chemistry with all of them. And I'm really excited to see that carry over into this season, a shortened season where you really don't have that much to lose. You don't have a state series this season. Really, all you're trying to go for is the local paper rankings, trying to
Right.
get up all the way to the top and winning your conference, which they really have a great shot at winning this year.
Yeah.
But I would definitely go agree with you there with this chemistry is spectacular, and that pick up your teammate attitude that the players have should carry over into this
Yeah.
season from last year. So there's a ton of new stuff that we're going to be seeing tomorrow. No tip-offs. Everyone's wearing masks. Mask breaks halfway through the quarter. What else am I missing? I know there's more stuff that's going to
Yeah.
be put into place, and it's going to look way different, and it's going to sound different because there's going to be next to nobody there, but there's going to be a ton of journalists there, which I am very happy about. We are going to have a ton of them there tomorrow, but I just want to get your first thoughts on it. With all of this new stuff put into place, particularly the players wearing masks and the no tip-off rule, just give me your opinion on how you think this could potentially impact the game.
Right. So I think the masks, first and foremost, obviously the mask will make it harder to breathe. So you just need to be in shape. If you're truly in basketball shape, which I'm pretty confident all these guys at this school are and most places are, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But if you're, kind of on the fence of, oh, didn't think the season was going to come back, wasn't working too hard, and you're still a little out of shape, that mask is going to affect you a lot. And I think that's why the mask break comes in. But also, if a team is rolling, they got the momentum. They just hit like 3 shots in a row, and then, they get a break. They can't keep rolling. It kind of cuts off their momentum. I think the biggest key that teams are going to have to focus on this year that's new is they're going to have to bring the energy themselves. They can't feed off of the crowd after they hit a big shot or there's a big defensive stop. They need to create everything. So that starts with the bench, but also the guys on the floor need to be vocal, need to be loud, need to just put all their emotions into it because they can't feed off of the crowd anymore. So I think that's going to be interesting to see if, energy has any effect in the game. But I don't think the masks should be too big of a deal as long as you're in shape already.
I would agree with the physical aspect of it, but as you described with feeding off the energy, this is something that's not just going to be plaguing our team, the
Right.
ND team. This is something that's been plaguing sports as a whole because nobody's able to go to any games unless you live in like Florida where everything's open.
Yeah.
And you can get like 15,000 people in there a game, but that's besides the point. That energy is not going to be there. And just thinking back to last year, when you're hitting that big three and the bullpen just falls down and everyone's going insane, that's not going to be there. And that's, like you said, that's going to be huge to be able to create your own energy. And that's not something that we've really had to see these players do in the past. So what I really want to see, particularly from the bench, and we know that the bench mob is probably one of the most electrifying benches that I've ever seen. They're going to play a huge role in this season in order to be able to keep that momentum going.
Yeah. And it kind of works both ways. Obviously, if you're rolling, you want the momentum. But if you're kind of facing a team that's hot all of a sudden, they're hitting a bunch of shots, you're kind of glad they don't have a fan section going crazy, kind of getting in your head. So I think it does kind of even out for everyone. But yeah, the benches and coaches even are going to have to be loud, have to be emotional, and just can't be as quiet as they were last year.
Yeah, this is going to be a season where home court advantages they're pretty much gone.
Yeah,
They're not going to be existent this year. So this year is going to be purely based on skill. And can you hit the shot? Can you get the screen? Can you make the block? I'm not afraid of the Dons being able to do that because we know that they can and we've seen them being able to do that. But having that energy of the crowd and being able to throw those chances at an opponent, they're not going to have that, and they're not going to be able to get in their opponent's heads. So it's going to be really dependent on the players themselves, and like you said, the coach and the benches, the coaches and the benches. There's not one coach. Just everyone as a whole, they have to bring that energy because,
right,
like you said, and you know this very well, the players feed off the energy.
right.
So a lot of this team revolves around the big three: Troy D'Amico, Louis Lesman, and Anthony Sales. Anthony is yet to commit.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge season for him because he hasn't picked where he wants to go yet. And even bigger, he hasn't decided if he wants to do basketball or football. But to stick with
Right.
basketball here, you know him better than I do. What do you think he has to do to be able to give himself the best chance at getting his best offer for college?
Right. So I think he just has to. There's a saying that says you can't control everything, and I think he needs to focus on that. He just has to take, because obviously no one knows what's going to happen this year, as we haven't known over the past couple months. Things change every week, every day, it seems. So he just has to focus on what he can control, and what he can't control is he has a game tomorrow. Obviously, everyone in this community knows how talented and how special he has been and will continue to be. So I think he just has to lace up his shoes every game and just play with the passion that he always plays with. And then come football time, if he wants to play football, if that's where his heart is, if he's passionate about that, then I'm sure he will do that. And if not, then he won't. But like I said, just take it kind of a day at a time, focus on what he control. And I think I'm pretty confident that 100% of his effort mentally and physically is into this basketball season right now.
I would completely side with you. Just from watching him on the football field and on the basketball court, I can really tell that he is a one day at a time guy. And even just being able to sometimes see him in practice and in warm-ups, I don't really sense that he's thinking about the future all that much. Like, obviously, you have to think about the future a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but he's very focused at the task at hand. And that's what I really like about him, is that he really cares about making sure he's hitting all of his shots, he's making all of his plays, making all of his passes. And I think, like you said, that's going to be big for him this season, is just making sure he's not his own enemy. And
Right.
that's kind of where I feel like that's going to be big for him, is making sure that you're not your own enemy and you're not getting into your own headspace in a negative way. I don't believe that's going to be a problem for him. And he's got all these offers waiting for him, but the season is going to be big for him. And in a shortened season, nonetheless, you're not playing 35 games this season. You're maybe going to play 15. Those stat boxes are going to be huge.
Right. And ND, I think last year especially, we kind of got that star coverage that maybe we weren't so used to, and that a lot of schools still don't get. So I think ND doesn't really suffer from it at all, being, no fans, no extra eyes on you, because like you said, we'll have journalists still, because we are so highly touted, and like we will have that coverage still. But for those teams that don't necessarily have that same treatment that we've had the luxury of having the past couple of years, they're really going to have to try to make some noise. But I think ND, Anthony, Louis, Troy, I don't think they have to, stress too much about putting up some crazy numbers every night. I think they'll know they still have eyes on them where enough people will see how they really play. So I think their thing for the big three and then the other starters and guys off the bench is just play their game. As different as it is, you have to treat it like it's just a normal game that you're just playing in your backyard with some friends. You just have to do what you're known to do well and do it with passion and effort. And I think a lot of good things will come from this season.
Absolutely. This is going to be a really fun season. The second member of the big three, King Louis. Everybody is obsessed with this guy. Just hammering threes left and right. His putback dunks, creating all of these Sports Center highlight reels. He's already committed.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have all that much to prove this season because he's already decided where he's going to go to college. Congratulations on getting into Harvard, by the way. So again, you know him better than I do because you played with him last season. His first season here at ND, coming over from Evanston. I want you to elaborate a little bit on how you felt he transitioned last year to this core that he joined and how that's going to carry over into this season.
Right. So, yeah, when Louis came over last year, I know there was a lot of people, I think like 50% would say, oh, ND is going to be insane now. They have this big three. But then the other half of people would say, I don't see how he's going to mesh with Troy and Anthony and the already kind of established foundation of the program. But Louis came in amazingly. I mean, we had summer games that you could see the chemistry was already there. I know he plays travel basketball with Anthony, and I'm sure he'd play with Troy at some point in his career. But he came in and he'll tell you himself, he's not a vocal guy on the court. He doesn't really lead with words, but he leads by example. He's always game face on, even on the bus rides when everyone's joking around. He's game face, music plugged in, and he's ready to go. And I can't think of one game that he wasn't 100% locked in, ready to take care of business. And I think that sometimes does more than being a vocal leader because some people just have to look at you and you already know, all right, he's serious. I got to get serious. We're going to go take care of business. So I think he blended so well with this program, and he's going to continue to obviously be a huge part of the success of this season.
How do you feel like he's going to, now that he has his college commitment already finished, he might have a little less eyes on him now because he's already decided where he's going to go. But now that he has committed, just in your own opinion, how do you feel like, what kind of importance does he have for this season coming up?
Well, I think he's still one of the most talented players in the state. So he has to, I know he wants to prove that to everyone. People may be writing him off already. Oh, he committed, he's not going to have as much attention. I think he knows that. And I think he's going to try to go out there and say, hey, everyone, I'm still one of the best. Don't write me off. Don't forget about me. I may have committed, but I'm still here and I'm still doing great things. So I think he's going to go out with a lot to prove. And I think he's going to be as good as we've ever seen him.
Absolutely. I think he's going, just kind of jumping off of what you're saying, I feel like he's going to play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder
100%.
because he might be thinking that people are already writing him off because he's already decided where he's going to go. So maybe they're thinking like, oh, this is a bit of just like an added season to put into the record books. I don't think he's going to perceive it in that way. He might try and improve on his statistics from last year and try and make himself into a better player going into college. I don't know the Harvard program all that well. He could seriously be a day one starter there with how he has played over his high school career. And if he solidifies it this season, he's a shoo-in to be a starter on the Harvard team. And that's what I think is going to be so important for him this season is you might be playing with that chip on your shoulder. Can you brush it off?
Right.
and tell all those people that I'm still here. I still have something left to prove, and I'm going to prove it to you.
Right.
So let's get to the last one of the big three. Troy D'Amico, who's again been spectacular over his entire career here, committed to Southern Illinois, following in Anthony Davanzo's footsteps, who's been spectacular down there, by the way. The big man on the court. I was kind of thinking the same thing with him as with Louis. Not as high of a prospect as Louis is in terms of like commitment. Um, even in terms of like attention too.
Right.
Louis probably gets more of the attention. This is just in my opinion. This Louis probably gets a little more of the attention than him. Do you feel like he might be trying to vie for some of that this season?
Yeah, well, I don't think Troy's a pretty quiet guy off the court, but on the court, he's as vocal as they come. And just knowing him, I don't think he pays any mind to the articles about him, the tweets about him, negative or positive. I don't think he really cares because he knows his game. He knows how talented he is. I don't think he looks for anyone else's validation. But he did just get the Player of the Decade nod.
That's right.
That's
right. I forgot about that.
Awesome. But like even that, which is crazy, I don't think he's really like gonna go tell people, look, I got this award. I think he's just trying to play basketball, not worry about anything else, and I think he just wants to win.
Yeah, I would go with that too. I'm interested to see, like, and again, I keep using this over and over because I don't know this as well as you do, but just watching him in the paint and his paint protection and just getting the rebounds, I think for him is going to be big again because he can be a big presence inside the arc. I want just give me a little bit how he's going to carry into this offensive scheme that lost Jason and lost Jimmy, two of their role players last year that kind of were on the side a little bit, but still had a big impact. Do you think he's going to take a little more of a bigger role this season without them?
Well, I think Troy, especially being 6'8" or 6'7", he's
big. He's huge.
He'd be sitting in the post all game, but he shoots a bunch of threes every game, and he shoots them well. So I think I know there was last games where it seemed like sometimes Louis was the star that night, sometimes Troy was, sometimes Anthony was, sometimes Jason was. So I think it's going to be the same way. I think there's going to be some games where it just allows Troy to be that star player where he can go shoot threes, take their big man off the dribble, or post up a smaller post player and feast down there. So I think there's going to be certain games where absolutely Troy will take on more responsibility, but then respectively other games, he can kind of take a backseat to whoever's night it is that day.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see this season because you don't have the complement in Jason Bergstrom, who was comparable in who was comparable in the height category. They were both really tall guys. So they were able to share a little bit, like as you said, in the post and getting the offensive boards. But what I'm more interested to see is with him, can he continue to produce on the outside of the perimeter, continue to hit those threes, and just keep getting the boards? I think that's going to be big for him too.
Yeah, I think Frank Lynch now has kind of stepped into that Jason Bergstrom role, but a little less of a shooter. He can still shoot the ball insanely well, but not as well known as Jason Bergstrom in terms of shooting. But I think Frank kind of steps up the physicality on the defensive end. But also Frank, I can't remember the exact time, but for a chunk of the season, he was our assist leader. He's 6'5", 6'4", but he creates really well for guards and centers. So I think he'll be a great addition to get people more shots because Frank is never a guy to go out on the court, looking for points. He wants to do the dirty work. He wants to get rebounds, set screens, be tough down low. So I think that'll be interesting too, to kind of see how Troy and Louis' role changes as post players with moving Frank in there.
All right. So this has been something since you brought Frank into the mix, and he's probably going to be Jason's protege. Who do you think is going to be the next Jimmy Murphy?
Right. So you have Sonny, who I would assume is starting at point guard. I think he is. So I think automatically he kind of gets that nod, just as the tough nosed who that we all know Sonny is. He got taller, but he's still kind of a smaller guard, but he doesn't play like it. And playing as a freshman on varsity, you obviously have to have some toughness that not everyone is gifted. He also has the skill to be able to play at this level, but I think he has to kind of use both his skill, but also just that toughness we know he has to step into that Jimmy role where it's maybe not the flashiest stat lines, but if you watch the game, you can tell how much Jimmy did. And I think Sonny will be that this year. Just watching the games, you'll be able to see the clear effect he has on the game.
Absolutely. Just from watching some of the tapes that he's had since the end of last season, just him working at a local gym against some other area players, I just feel like just from watching the progression from the end of last season, now going into this season, I feel like he's going to have a much bigger role, especially like you said, probably going to step into that starting job. I feel like his shooting game has really improved a lot just from being able to see these tapes that excuse me, some people have put out there on social media that have covered him. I really like what I'm seeing, and I'm excited to see that. And now I'm going to transition over to you a little bit. You were one of the guys that was considered the sixth man last year, who was one of the first options off the bench. You're not playing this year. Sonny's probably going to start. So is Frank. Who's going to be those first couple guys to go to on the bench this year?
Right. Well, first, I think of Jake DeFranza, just because he got some consistent minutes, especially towards the end of last year. And I've played with a lot of people. I think he might be the best three-point shooter I've ever seen. Just, he's not that big of a guy. He thinks he's all muscly, but he's not that big. But he can shoot the ball like no one's business. And it's an art when you watch him shoot. He's so precise about his footwork, where his elbow releases from, and it pays off. So I think he's a 3-and-D guy where he'll kind of be a three-point specialist, but also bring toughness on the defense that he brings when he plays football. And then you have to think about guys who have been there before. Colin Kovac, Jared Baffa, Gavin Gutierrez is still there. They didn't get too many minutes last year, but now they have that experience under their belt where I'm sure if Coach Clancy needs to throw someone in there who he can bank on to be confident in their decisions, he can look to any of those guys. And then coming up now, we have Jimmy Dahoney that you mentioned coming over from Garin Prep, who should make an instant impact. Just he's played varsity a few years already. He knows how to handle pressure and how to be confident in all of his decisions. And then also the sophomores who are now up, my mind goes to Anthony McGee and then Jace Fletcher. So they're juniors now. They're in great position to step into a game playing role where it may not be a flashy stat line, but I'm sure they know that and they're willing to go in, make good passes, play hard defense, and give anything they have to this program.
Absolutely. And I just want to expand a little bit on Anthony McGee. I was able to watch him a little bit last year in some of the sophomore games. I was able just to watch, and he was probably one of the primary guys that I saw from the last year's sophomore team. He was always getting his name called from the scorer's table. He was always involved in, especially on the offensive side. He's a massive offensive presence, and yeah. I'm really excited to see how he gets used this year, because I kind of feel like you said with DeFranza, him being a really good 3-point shooter. I also think Anthony McGee's a really good 3-point shooter. He hits a lot of his shots, and he always hits them at crucial times, which is also really big too. Um, I think he's going to be really important off the bench as well in that regard.
Right. And I played with Anthony freshman year, a little bit in 8th grade, and then a little bit sophomore year. So I know he's a great offensive player. And my favorite thing about his game is he never tries to do too much. He's always under control. He knows where he wants to go on the floor, and he doesn't waste time doing it. He's not going to dribble the ball for 15 seconds trying to be flashy. He'll put the ball on the floor and get to where he wants to go. And I think that's exactly what Coach Clancy wants. That's exactly what every coach wants. So I think Anthony as well will be a great addition to this team. And I think he'll see minutes right away off the bench.
Absolutely. You might even see him tomorrow too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past him. Especially just like some of the flashiness that you see too. Like you said, he doesn't try and do too much, but when he does make those plays, you can tell there is a little bit of flashiness there. He does show a little bit of emotion, which sometimes is good. Especially from a player like that who was a big impact player last year on that sophomore team. And now he's getting carried into this huge core of guys that is really, really good. That has all these commitments and pending offers for not just their starters, but for a lot of the bench guys too. This is a stacked team.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sometimes it could be, I know last year coming in, I was intimidated like completely. And I'll be the first to say that. You have 3 D1 guys at the time. Jason Bergstrom was committed going D2. Jimmy Murphy went D3. So that's 5 college players in your starting lineup, which almost never happens. So you come in, especially as a younger guy, you're intimidated by that. But I think now Sonny, being the youngest guy on the team, he's confident. And I think everyone knows that. He's not going to be scared of anyone. So I think the biggest thing for these guys coming in, the guys we talked about, the now juniors, and then Jimmy transferring over as a senior, I don't think they're going to be intimidated, but I think it's important for them to remember that they shouldn't be. They're teammates. They're not watching these studs play. They're on the same team as them, and they have a genuine ability to do just as much as those guys. So I think if everyone kind of plays confidently, I think it's going to be another special season.
I would agree with you there. Hopefully another double-digit win season is in the making. As we wrap things up here, just give me your final thoughts. Anything you want to put out there, have at it.
I just think the fans of basketball who have been missing it, it's back. I know I'm happy. Danny, I know you're happy. I think everyone's happy. So I know all you guys can do is watch from online, but comment stuff, text, tweet stuff, whatever. Be passionate still. Even though you're not at the game physically, do as much as you can to show the team love and the community love. I think it would mean a lot.
Absolutely. Just to bounce off of that a little bit, we might be your only way to see some of this. If we find ways to get you some of the road games, we will absolutely get them to you, because we want you to be able to see this team play as much as you can. And we're lucky that we have so many home games this year, which means a ton of opportunities for you to be able to watch on our channel and to listen to us crazy people trying to call a game that have no idea what's happening. Well, you know what's happening. I don't. So there's that. But yeah, like you said, interact. We have the live chat that's going to be available on the YouTube games. You can tweet at us. We're gonna try and get some of your tweets onto our Gamecast. We'll see if that happens. I don't know. We're also trying to support our local businesses too. All our school sponsors will be featured as well as some of the clubs and associations at our school. So we're just trying to keep the community involved as much as we can, but we can't do it without you, the fans, as well. And that's going to be big going into this season and throughout the season, because I know for a fact that these players are going to need it, because you are not going to physically be there. but we want you to still be there for them.
Right.
So, first game is tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. And then the week after that, we have 3 games. We will be very busy. Don't miss us too much. So, tomorrow's game is against Prospect. Next Monday, the 8th, right after the Super Bowl, we will be playing against Streamwood. That game just added, I believe, today. Then conference games begin. Nazareth will be playing on the February the 9th. And then we will have our first JV game of the season, a doubleheader on Friday the 12th against Joliet Catholic. So we will be busy these next couple of weeks trying to get you as much action as we can so that you can still interact with these teams. This was good. I'm happy we did this.
Yep.
So glad that you got to meet us because you probably won't see us on screen too much. You will hear us a lot, which is good. Mac, this was a pleasure to do.
Yep.
I will see you tomorrow. All of you watching, make sure that you watch the game tomorrow. We're trying to break our viewing record. Our viewing record is about 9,100 people that watched the St. Pat's game last season. We're trying to break that. So let's try and get over 10K.
That's a big audience.
Yeah. Not to mention there was like 2,500 people that were in the gym as well. So let's see how many we can get. Also, President of Notre Dame, Mr. Shea Boyle, he will be joining us during halftime. Hopefully, the both of us will be able to interview him. We probably both will.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun interview. So make sure that you stick around for that during halftime. I got nothing else. You got anything else you want to put out there?
No, I'm good.
All righty. So with that, we will see you all tomorrow for the home opener of the season. Again, make sure that you continue to tweet, share, whatever you want to do to be able to show your love for this team. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram, and you subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as following all of the ND Sports pages, such as the regular ND page on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as the enrollment and all of the sports pages and athletics pages to make sure that you stay updated with everything that's going on around the school. My friend, I will see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
All of our viewers, have a great remainder of your day.